We just want to know why. He left his kids, he left his family. The rest is around the holidays. And we just want to know why. He's a good father, good family person, good outgoing person. The question is just why.
No, I want any commentary directed at me. So she directed her commentary to me. So if you have anything to say, you can say it. Be respectful. I said directed.
I apologize. My intention was to never hurt him. I never tried it.
Okay.
Y'all, I'm sorry, Michaela. I'm sorry. Mary, I'm sorry. Alicia, Nisha, I love y'all. I'm sorry that went my attention.
All right.
The gun went off. I would never try to hurt him. He's a great dad. I'm sorry, Mary.
All right. Okay. All right. Did you have any questions about the charges or anything? If not, y'all can let us sign the paperwork. Did y'all have any questions?
No, ma'am.
Okay, well, y'all are free to go.
Okay.
This
Investigators were here at the Motel 6 all morning looking into the death of 22-year-old David Edens Jr. Take a look behind me here. You can see the two rooms where they were focusing their investigation. They're the ones on the end there with the windows that have been knocked out. We saw forensic teams sweeping those areas with flashlights and taking lots of pictures. But this all started at 10:30 last night. It was originally a call for a burglary that Greenville County Sheriff's Office responded to. When they got here, though, that's when they found the body of 22-year-old David Edens Jr. Here's a look at the scene from just earlier this morning. This was around 1 o'clock. The coroner says that the victim did have a wound, but he did not say what kind of wound that was. We're expecting to hear some more details on the manner of death in this case a little later today because
I'll stay single for life before I enter another toxic-ass relationship. Facts. David Edens Jr., Facebook post, November 19, 2019. It was a message that didn't just echo heartbreak. It was a warning, a prophecy. And hours after that post, David Edens Jr. would be gone, shot dead in a motel room by the woman he once loved, the mother of his child. This is a story about how love, rage, and unresolved pain can collide in the worst possible way. How private chaos spilled into public violence. How one moment of fury created a lifetime of grief. And how the internet saw it coming. This is the true and tragic story of David Edens Jr. and Kodesha Bryson. A toxic love, a final Facebook post, and a single gunshot that changed everything. Welcome to the channel, and if you're new here, like, share, and subscribe, especially if you believe in shining light on real stories that deserve to be heard. Today, we're bringing you something raw and unforgettable. A case that didn't get national headlines, but should have. Because it's not just about a crime, it's about two young lives spiraling in plain sight. About what happens when red flags are ignored. And about the innocent children left behind. Let's begin. It's a chilly Tuesday night in Greenville. The sun had long dipped below the horizon, and the familiar neon glow of Motel 6 on Wade Hampton Boulevard flickered above the parking lot. Inside one of the rooms, 22-year-old David Edens Jr. was trying to escape the storm that had followed him for months, his on-and-off relationship with 25-year-old Kodesha Bryson. What David didn't know was that the storm was already outside. At around 8:45 p.m., motel staff and guests began calling 911. A woman, angry, desperate, and armed, was smashing through windows of the motel rooms, screaming someone's name. That someone was David. She busted the window in, was yelling at him to come out. She said, "Come outside the room." And when he came out, she shot him. When first responders arrived, they found David unresponsive with a single gunshot wound. He died at the scene. Kodesha Bryson fled. Before he became the center of a murder case, David was simply a young man trying to find peace. A father, a brother, a son. People who knew him said he loved to laugh. He had 2 young kids he adored, Kalani and Amir. They were his world. But behind his smile, David had been dealing with a relationship that was spiraling into something dangerous. He and Kodesha had broken up more than once. Friends saw the warning signs. Fights, tension, jealousy, long rants on social media. Still, he tried. For the kids. Maybe even for love. But on the day he died, David posted a message that showed how tired he really was. "I'll stay single for life before I enter another toxic-ass relationship." Facts. That was his last post. Hours later, he was gone. David Edens Jr. was more than the headlines that followed his death. He was a young father who carried the weight of responsibility on his shoulders, a brother who cared deeply for his family, and a man caught in the crossfire of a relationship that was quickly spiraling out of control. Born and raised in Greenville, South Carolina, David was known among friends and family as someone with a big heart and a quick smile. He worked hard to provide for his 2 children, Kalani and Amir, who were the center of his world. To those close to him, his love for his kids was undeniable. He would do anything to protect and support them. But life wasn't easy. Behind the laughter and the efforts to keep things together, David was struggling with a toxic relationship that drained his spirit. He and Kodesha Bryson had an on-again, off-again dynamic that many described as volatile. Friends noticed how David would sometimes seem worn down, weighed down by the constant ups and downs. Social media posts and messages gave a glimpse into the emotional roller coaster he was on. At times, he expressed frustration and exhaustion with the chaos, wishing for peace and stability. Yet, despite it all, he remained hopeful that things could improve for the sake of their children and perhaps for themselves. In the weeks leading up to his death, David's posts grew increasingly candid. The message he posted hours before his murder, "I'll stay single for life before I enter another toxic-ass relationship." Facts. Was a heartbreaking sign that he was reaching his breaking point. David's story was not just about the tragedy that took his life, but also about the human being who loved, hoped, and fought against forces much bigger than himself. Kodesha Bryson's life was intertwined with David's in ways that neither could fully escape. At just 25 years old, Kodesha was a young mother grappling with her own struggles, emotional, financial, and personal. Friends and family described her as fiercely protective of her children and sometimes prone to intense emotions that could quickly shift from love to anger. The relationship between Kodesha and David had been complicated from the start. They shared a child together, which added layers of responsibility and expectation. But their bond was also marked by frequent arguments, jealousy, and distrust. Those close to the couple often witnessed moments of volatility that hinted at deeper problems beneath the surface. In the weeks and days before the shooting, the tension escalated. Text messages later revealed by investigators painted a picture of a relationship filled with accusations, desperation, and emotional manipulation. Both David and Kodesha seemed trapped in a cycle of hope and disappointment, love and resentment. Kodesha's decision to confront David that November night was fueled by a storm of emotions. Whether it was jealousy, hurt, or fear, what happened next would have devastating consequences. The act of smashing motel windows and bringing a gun to their final encounter was a tragic culmination of months of toxic back and forth. What drove Kodesha to that point? Was it a moment of rage? A desperate cry for control? The answers are complex and painful. As investigators sifted through social media posts, texts, and witness statements, a fuller, more nuanced picture of their final hours began to emerge, one that goes beyond headlines to reveal the human emotions and mistakes behind the tragedy. Hours after David Edens Jr. posted his chilling message about staying single rather than enduring another toxic relationship, the night of November 19, 2019, in Greenville took a deadly turn. What began as another day in a relationship riddled with tension ended in tragedy at a Motel 6 on Wade Hampton Boulevard. On that night, Kodesha Bryson arrived at the motel with a clear purpose. Whether fueled by anger, desperation, or a mix of both, witnesses later described a woman furious and determined, breaking windows of the motel room, screaming for David to come outside. The scene quickly became chaotic, drawing the attention of staff and guests alike. 911 calls came pouring in as the situation escalated. Police and emergency responders rushed to the motel, arriving just moments after the shooting. Inside the room, David lay critically wounded, a single gunshot having struck him. Despite rapid medical response, he was pronounced dead at the scene. Kodesha fled immediately after the shooting. Authorities launched a manhunt, and she was apprehended within hours. Her weapon was recovered nearby. The investigation that followed was thorough and painstaking. Law enforcement combed through texts, social media posts, and call logs from both David and Kodesha's phones to piece together the timeline and motive. Text messages uncovered a pattern of emotional volatility, with exchanges revealing accusations of betrayal and desperate attempts to salvage their relationship. In the days before the shooting, messages became increasingly hostile, highlighting the toxic nature of their interactions. Social media added another layer. David's final Facebook post was not just a statement, but a clear signal of his emotional exhaustion. Investigators noted the timing of the post relative to the fatal confrontation, painting a picture of a man desperate to break free from the cycle. Surveillance footage from the motel captured Kodesha's arrival and her moments leading up to the shooting. The footage showed her smashing windows and confronting David before the fatal shot was fired. Witnesses at the motel recalled hearing the crash of broken glass and the gunshot, followed by screams and frantic calls to 911. Their testimonies helped reconstruct the chaotic final moments. For the families involved, the aftermath was heartbreaking. 2 young children suddenly lost their father and mother was facing murder charges. The Greenville community mourned a tragedy born out of love turned deadly. As the case moved through the courts, the evidence from digital footprints, witness accounts, and forensic analysis painted a detailed picture of what happened, a tragic tale of passion, pain, and irreversible consequences. To truly understand how a relationship once filled with hope devolved into deadly violence, we need to look beyond the headlines and into the hearts of David Edens Jr. and Kodesha Bryson. David grew up in Greenville surrounded by family who loved him, but life wasn't without hardship. From a young age, he learned to shoulder responsibility. His family emphasized hard work and loyalty, values David carried into adulthood. Becoming a father intensified his drive. Kalani and Amir were his world, giving him purpose and joy amidst life's struggles. He dreamed of creating a stable home for his children, breaking the cycle of hardship he'd known. But David also battled internal conflicts. Those close to him saw glimpses of a man torn between hope and frustration, a man longing for peace yet caught in the storm of a toxic relationship. His final social media post revealed raw exhaustion, a plea for a new beginning away from pain. Kodesha's story was no less complex. She was young, a mother with dreams and fears. Friends described her as passionate, fiercely protective, and at times overwhelmed by emotions that could swing from joy to anger in moments. She carried the weight of past wounds, broken relationships, financial struggles, and the challenges of raising children in a world that often felt unforgiving. Her love for her children was a constant, but her relationship with David was a mirror of her own battles, hope mingled with hurt, trust broken and rebuilt, only to fracture again. Those closest to her noticed her internal fight, wanting to hold on, yet feeling trapped by pain and mistrust. Their relationship was marked by moments of tenderness and laughter, brief respites from the chaos. But these were often overshadowed by jealousy, arguments, and accusations. The cycle became a trap neither seemed able to escape. Friends recounted scenes of the couple trying to find normalcy, attending family gatherings, celebrating birthdays, sharing smiles and plans for the future. But the underlying tension simmered beneath every interaction, threatening to boil over. On the night of the shooting, these bottled-up emotions erupted with catastrophic force. The anger, hurt, and desperation that had built over months exploded in a moment that changed everything. The tragedy was not simply about a single act of violence. It was the culmination of years of pain, misunderstanding, and human frailty. It serves as a stark reminder of how unchecked emotions and toxic dynamics can spiral beyond control, devastating lives and leaving scars that echo far beyond the immediate. The courtroom was tense, every seat filled with people waiting for the trial of Kodesha Bryson to begin. The air was thick with anticipation. Family members, friends, local media, and community members had come seeking answers for a tragedy that shook Greenville to its core. The judge entered, her gavel striking sharply, signaling the start of a case that would reveal the darkest corners of a toxic relationship gone deadly. As the proceedings unfolded, the courtroom transformed into a stage where raw emotion, hard facts, and piercing truths clashed. The prosecution's opening statement. The lead prosecutor stepped forward, voice steady but firm. She painted a vivid picture of the night that changed everything. The rage that drove Kodesha to break motel windows, the desperation that led her to confront David Edens Jr., and the fatal gunshot that ended his life. She laid out the timeline painstakingly, from David's final social media post to the chilling surveillance footage showing Kodesha arriving at the motel, the shattered glass, and the fatal moments inside the room. The evidence will show that this was not an act of sudden passion, but a calculated and tragic choice, the prosecutor declared. A choice that robbed 2 children of their father and forever altered 2 families. The defense's counter. When it was the defense attorney's turn, a different story emerged. Calm and compassionate, he described Kodesha as a woman overwhelmed by emotion, a mother, a girlfriend, a human caught in the crushing grip of a toxic relationship. He painted their relationship as a storm of love and conflict, a cycle of pain neither could break free from. This was a moment of chaos, not cold calculation, he argued. Kodesha's actions were born of fear and heartbreak, not malice. Witness testimonies. Then came the testimony of those who knew David and Kodesha best. Friends spoke of brighter days, birthday parties where laughter filled the air, family gatherings where the couple dreamed aloud of a better future. But the smiles were shadowed by arguments overheard, moments of jealousy, and signs of emotional strain. A close friend of David's voice cracked as she recalled, he wanted so badly to make it work for his kids, but the constant fighting wore him down. Kodesha's sister described a woman torn. She loved her children fiercely, but felt trapped in a relationship that hurt her more than healed. Emotional family impact. The most poignant moments came when the families took the stand. David's mother, struggling to hold back tears, spoke of her son's dreams, his hopes for his children, and the void his loss left behind. "We lost a light that day," she said softly. "A father, a son, someone who deserved better." Kodesha's mother described her daughter's pain and the shock of seeing her charged with murder. "This is not the girl I raised, but I still love her." Jury deliberation and verdict. After days of testimony, cross-examinations, and emotional outbursts, the jury retreated to deliberate. The courtroom was silent, every heart heavy with the weight of what lay in their hands. When they returned, the verdict was read slowly, each word hanging in the air. Guilty of murder. The judge's sentence reflected the severity of the crime, but also acknowledged the emotional turmoil behind it. Kodesha Bryson was to face significant prison time, justice served, yet the scars on both families would never fully heal. This was a courtroom filled not just with legal arguments, but with raw human stories of love, pain, regret, and loss. It was a reminder that behind every headline lies a tangled web of emotions and consequences. As the gavel echoed through the courtroom, signaling the verdict, a wave of silence swept over everyone present. The weight of the decision settled heavily, not just on Kodesha Bryson, but on every person connected to this devastating story. Outside the courthouse, emotion spilled into the streets of Greenville. News crews gathered, broadcasting live as community members shared their heartbreak, anger, and hopes for healing. Friends of David Edens Jr. held a vigil at the very Motel 6 where his life was taken. Flickering candlelight illuminated tear-streaked faces as they recounted memories of a man who loved fiercely and fought tirelessly to provide for his children. He was a good man, one friend whispered. He deserved so much better than this. Kodesha's family faced a different kind of pain, one mingled with grief, guilt, and shock. At a small gathering in their home, her mother quietly spoke about the complexity of love and loss. "We're heartbroken. This is a tragedy all around." Local advocates for domestic violence awareness stepped forward, using this tragedy as a rallying cry to address the silent struggles many endure behind closed doors. They urged community members to seek help, to recognize the signs of toxic relationships, and to break the cycle before it turns deadly. Social media became a battleground of opinions, some expressing sympathy for David and his children, others calling for understanding of Kodesha's circumstances. The online drama that once inflamed the couple's relationship now sparked conversations about mental health, toxic love, and prevention. Social media campaigns spread hashtags like #BreakTheCycle and #LoveShouldn'tHurt, urging people to seek help and speak out. Survivors shared their stories, breaking the silence that often surrounds toxic relationships. For many in Greenville, the hope is that from this heartbreak, lessons are learned, lives are saved, and cycles of violence are finally broken. This story isn't just about a shocking shooting in a motel. It's about everything that came before it, the warnings, the red flags, the toxicity that built up behind closed doors. It's about two people who lost themselves in a relationship that turned deadly. And now, two children are left in the aftermath, without a father, without a mother, and with questions that will follow them for the rest of their lives. So before you click away, think, how many people do you know who are in relationships that seem fine on the outside, but inside, they're falling apart? How many are silently suffering, too afraid to speak up, too tired to leave? If you or someone you love is in a relationship that hurts more than it heals, there is help. You are not alone. Toxic love is not love, and silence can be deadly. Share this video, not for the clicks, not for the views, but because maybe, just maybe, someone will watch this and decide to walk away before it's too late. And if this is your first time here, welcome to the channel. We tell real stories, hard stories, because they matter. If that's the kind of truth you believe in, like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us keep telling the stories that others are afraid to. Stay aware, stay safe, and please, take care of your heart before it's too far gone.